posts. And before we start going into my workflow, I would love to know, what kind of content are you looking to organize in your ClickUp? So what kind of content are you looking to produce or manage? I'm thinking about, what channel are you using? Is it maybe YouTube? Is it blog posts? Are you looking to just manage social media posts? What kind of content are you interested in managing in your ClickUp account? What I'm going to start is the way I start every single process map. And where does the process begin and end at a high level? So we're actually going to go up to a blank spot on the page here and just map it out together so we're all on the same page as to what process we are actually worrying about. And for you, depending on what you're working on, so I see some people podcasting, blogging, production and editorial, depending on what you're mapping, your flow is going to be a little different here. So, this is the flow that I'm going to be digging into today. Most of our time is going to be spent on these latter two habits because I'm going to be picking it up right around the end of the idea stage. So you'll see how exactly I manage all of these pieces. A step that happens after this for most people is kind of like an analytics review or an ongoing maintenance of content. We're not going to cover that today just because we're barely going to have time to cover all of the things my ambitions want us to cover in this particular live. But that's kind of how all of these pieces are fitting together. And we're going to focus today, like I said, on this particular area between production and promotion and analytics review. So these guys here is where we're going to be focusing. As we go through this, there's going to be areas where I'm going to have to call out a sub-process that I'm not able to map right now. So if you are mapping along with me, trying to map out your process, understand we're going to be working at one level. And if you need to dig down and break something out into smaller pieces, you're welcome to do that. And it doesn't need to all be done in one sitting. So let's get to it. For me, content starts with an idea. And I bet many of you are the same, right? You have your ideas at one point in time and you start creating off of them with another. And when you're actually creating your ideas, one of the things that you might need to do is keep track of them somewhere. So something that I do in my ClickUp account, and I'm actually going to take you behind the scenes of my ClickUp in here. One of the things I do is actually create a list called content ideas. And this is an area where I'll keep track of all of the different ideas that are coming up for me in my ClickUp account and put them all with an idea status. So you'll see me talk about this as we go through the workflow. But this idea status, which is that little light bulb / emoji for a status here, just lets me know that it's an idea that I haven't yet vetted, that I'm not sure if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but it is indeed an idea. Once that list idea or that idea is on the list, it's time to start kind of triaging, right? Because as we commonly say, every idea is not a good idea. So to figure out what is a good idea, we need to kind of have some criteria for cutting it down. The criteria I use is keyword, mostly. So keyword strength, what keyword can I relate to that question I want to answer, and how strong is that keyword according to, for me, YouTube, it's going to be TubeBuddy most likely to tell me the strength of that. Based on this criteria, which is really our, this is kind of like a triage point. Based on that criteria, we then change the status, which is our indication of where it fell after that. So this is kind of our, so I'm going to do it. All right. So what you can see in this one is I actually have two parts of my content ideas area. The top half, which has kind of like that thinking face, and the bottom half, which is just the idea light bulb. And that is me kind of breaking things out. The light bulbs are ones that are ideas that I would love to do. Maybe I did a little bit of light research. And the ones I'm thinking about are ones that I think are good ideas. And I just did a video. I think it's actually releasing today, I want to say, talking about how you can use emojis as your statuses. Maybe that was even last week. And it talked about how you can just rank good idea, bad idea by using statuses with emojis. And that's what I'm doing here to kind of sort through and focus on what can actually go in to my content plan, my content, kind of what the content plan is like, what holes do I have to fill? And these are the possibilities of what I can use to fill those respective holes. So once I triage and I have kind of my indication and sorting, I change it to my different status to let me know what I have sorted. And then we're moving on. Now, before I move on, for those of you who have shared some of the things that you're looking to track, podcasting, blogging, some of you are also on YouTube. Wonderful. First of all, if you're on YouTube, love for you to share your channel. I'm always looking for new channels. But if you have content that you're tracking, how are you currently tracking your ideas? Are you doing something similar with a list? Do you have a notebook? Please share in the comments so that way we can kind of swap some notes, because this is the way that I'm doing it, that I enjoy, but it's definitely not the only way to manage your ideas in ClickUp or in another tool. So we've got that stuff going. Please do share that. And while you do, I'm going to transition over to what happens once we have a good idea that we know we want to move forward with and we fit it into our content plan. So backing up one step, I actually realized as we're going through here, I missed one step. So I'm going to actually add that in here, just like you might have to do if you're going to be doing this. You might realize, oh, shoot, I missed something. Add it in. The step I missed, which I mentioned verbally here, is that not every idea that's a good idea gets into my content, right? You don't see every single good idea I have. They all need to be staggered out. And once upon a time, I really just focused on getting out whatever piece of content I could get out next. But I've transitioned more recently to actually having more of a content structure. So the structure's in place, and then my good ideas, I plug into that structure when I'm planning the next month. Oh, thank you for some of these ideas. So let me hear what some of you guys are doing for your ideas. I see some people are tracking ideas in ClickUp, but also listing them in a Google Doc to collaborate with the team who are not in the platform. Ooh, that's nice. I've also seen some people use Notion for this. Google Docs, very similar, just to be able to get through that, or even Coda to have people who are outside of ClickUp. I wish ClickUp was better about collaborating with people outside of ClickUp, but I guess they got to make money somehow. Other ideas we have. I'm using a brainstorming/ideas list in ClickUp. All right, awesome. I would love to hear also what kind of, for those of you who are using ClickUp, what custom fields you're using. Because for me, keywords a good one, but also ease and impact are staples in my idea vetting. So anyway, let's go back into the flow here. Please continue to share how you're tracking your ideas and sorting them. And as we go on, share your tips for each of these. When I'm creating my content plan for the month, I will then pull from this good ideas list to develop and fill out what the content plan is for the next period of time. You could even call it a sprint. Whether it's a month or a week, we're going to pull from the good ideas and plug them into the template for the overall month folder list to fill in the gaps of what we're actually going to be producing. Once we decide we're going to produce something, two steps happen, and these are both happening. I mean, most of these are happening by me, but this particular step is a really important one that I'd love to hear some comparison of how you guys are doing it. The next steps are starting the actual messaging and the substance of the content. What is the point of the content? What is it supposed to teach? And I realize I'm not sharing my screen, but here it is. Once we have it in the plan, start the messaging of what is the purpose of the content. Most of my content, as you probably noticed, is very educational, almost to a fault. I don't have enough self-promotion or clickbaitiness. So that's been almost a challenge, trying to stay true to that while also growing on a search-based platform. But oh well, I really try to get my messaging down first, which is what am I trying to answer? And what is the major points that I'm trying to cover in that video or piece of content? Usually that's the form of an outline with a few bullet points. Then I actually go to record. There's not a whole lot of stuff happening here, and it's typically happening on the same day, if not the same sitting. Now, I actually wanted to give you guys a bit of a behind the scenes. So here we go. I'll pull this in here. This is definitely not the full thing, but you can actually see a zoom out of what my messaging template looks like. So here's one of them. And it got a little funky with some of the formatting here, but this is a task template. I use a one task per piece of content structure in my ClickUp, which for those of you in Clicking Up, I'll actually be taking you into my ClickUp as we start building out the structure we're going to be making together. We're going to take this whole process map and build it out in ClickUp, and then you'll get the template. So you'll see all of this. But for those of you in the Facebook group or on YouTube watching this, this is just kind of the beginning. You can see it scrolls for quite a while of the task template I use. The task description actually uses tables and kind of prompts to help me fill out the details I need to get my stuff together. Not all of this is filled out at the beginning. Some of it's filled out in the first pass, and then it kind of gets revised and revised as the content moves through the process. But usually in these early stages, I'm focused on getting the primary keyword in, the thumbnail copy, the keywords that'll show up in that thumbnail, the file name that I'm going to be saving all my files as, a few other pieces of this, which, talking about sub-processes, right here, pretty much every single one of these steps in my ClickUp at least has its own process, its own checklist of usually, a few steps that need to be followed to complete this. Recording obviously has quite a few, but starting the messaging has a checklist of the key things that need to be filled out before the recording happens. And this usually takes the form of my ClickUp in a ClickUp doc, but in yours, it might be a checklist or a description with some checkboxes to help you keep track of all of the things that you want to gather at this phase in the process. Now, as I'm looking at this, and this is what I want you to be doing too, as you're actually going through and mapping out your process, I'm already seeing some things as we're going through here that I think could be clear. I don't know if you're seeing them too with fresher eyes than I am, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wow, this could probably be pretty good to break out my actual messaging area and break it into chunks of what needs to be done. What's the initial draft of messaging? What's the next draft of messaging? What are the different chunks of messaging that I need to define when? So this is how ideas come up when you're process mapping. And I'm actually going to write that idea here. I can keep track of it for later, but that's why we process map. That's the point of getting this all out of our heads so we can actually see where it goes from here. Now to zoom out for just a moment, we've got quite a bit of ground we're going to cover before the end of this video. So if you're able to stick around, please do. If not, make sure you save this link so you can come back to it. But we're going to go from the messaging and the creation of the content here into WordPress, into social media, into newsletters, and more. So if you guys are excited about that, please do leave an emoji or thumbs up for this video. And let me know if there's any specific questions you have about what we're going to cover next. So I make sure we talk about it because I know there's a bit of a delay on this. All right, so we have some ideas coming up already about splitting up the messaging. After we have that messaging filled out, we are going to record the raw draft, the raw footage. Then we're going to start editing. Again, you can imagine that there is a process here that is quite complex that is not written down. There's a certain process for editing, the flow that you do it in. Which do you do first? That is all a sub-process that we could break this out into if we wanted to get into the nitty-gritty, which I have on my side, but we're not going to worry about this on our first process map. All right, once we have the editing process done, we do a rough upload, and that's at least how I manage content right now. This is relatively new for us, where we will actually upload the YouTube video to YouTube without everything being finished, just so we can access that URL for the other tasks that are coming up. And that'll make sense in a second here. After the rough upload, we fill out more areas of that messaging template, more things that really speak to the content, the core areas of the messaging template that need to be filled out before we move on. We want to make sure that those are fully filled out here. So it's a second pass once the video is done to really make sure that the description and the title reflect the content of the video. So once our rough upload is complete, we start to split off. We start to go into that repurposing. I'm actually going to get rid of my image here so that way we're not providing any distraction. Rough upload, core areas of messaging template is filled out. And at the same time, we've cleared the way that we're able to generate a transcript using that rough upload from our transcription tool, which we use HappyScribe. I really enjoy it, but people also use Rev, they use Otter, a bunch of other tools here. And we generate that transcript. Once we have the transcript generated, we do a rough kind of check. We don't check it meticulously because it is an AI generated transcript. It doesn't need to be perfect, but we do give it a once over. And that kicks off our blog process from the YouTube video. Before the video is even published, we start worrying about the blog post. At the same time, or thereabouts, we also start working on filling out the remaining areas of our messaging template. Like you saw that screenshot that I shared. There's a lot of places to scroll down here. There's a lot of different fields that we want to have filled in, as well as custom fields that we want to make sure are really dialed in. So when our video is published, we've thought about and collaborated together on each aspect of it. So you see these kind of are happening at the same time. They're not blocked by each other. From there, things get even funkier. I feel like we need to pick a path to follow at this point because it can go a lot of different ways. I think let's jump into the blog post. We'll follow the blog post all the way through. Then we're going to jump back to the video and see where that takes us next. So on the blog post side, we generate our transcript in HappyScribe. We go to proof that transcript. Then we duplicate our blog page template. Now, this blog page template was created by copying blogs that we really liked pieces of and creating our own structure. Now, I'm not in love with where it is right now. It's definitely something I want to make better. But here's a screenshot of what a video blog post looks like on Process Driven's website. There's some information above it, which you can't see here. then there's the video, then there's related resources, then there's a video transcript. Right now, the video transcript is not a true blog post. It is more so just a transcript, but I think that's an opportunity that we want to look into in the future, which while I'm here, let's write that. Okay. So this is how it goes. All righty, let me read some of the comments that are coming in here as we go. Lots of people with some great editing flows, simple first draft, review, second draft, and review status for your checklist. Yeah, checklists are invaluable on that. And I still think I miss things so often. Question here, do you list all of the steps checklists in the task card to begin with, or do you use automations to add checklists as it moves through each stage of your process? This is a good question. So right now, the way we have it structured is we do have it added from the get-go, and then we have dependencies between them because I use a task structure with subtasks. And while I could use automations to trigger it, there's not really a good consistent trigger, and automations at this point are still a little untrustworthy. So I rather have it all kind of added out, all the steps listed out, with dependencies to let people know when they can start and deadlines based on the overall due date. So that way my team can predict their workload. I feel really terrible when I have to say like, oh, by the way, that video is ready. The template was just applied and now you need to do it by Friday. Versus if that task is in there, they can look at next month and see, oh, I've got to do this on a Thursday and this on a Friday. It allows for that anticipation. Even though it does slightly risk, things being ignored because they're sitting there for a while. So to answer this question, I have them all sitting there and I don't use automations for the sake of planning. I think if I had more of a group of employees or if I was doing it all, I probably would lean towards automations. But with a team, I think it's more important to be predictable and transparent. So that's where I'm at right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If anyone's using automations, if you really love them, you might be able to sell me on the switch there. All right, so we got our duplicate our blog template. I will also add that there's some really good YouTube videos on this blog template process from, now I'm going to forget. I think it's called Hot Content. Natasha something. She has a great video talking about how she creates her blog templates. And an aside, this is the reason we process map, because right now you now have a keyword for what to look for on YouTube or Google to improve a specific step of the process. Like right now, I'm thinking, I want to improve my blog template. But now at least I have a specific term to look for to know what I want to improve versus just thinking, I want to put YouTube videos on blog better. No, I need a blog template for repurposing YouTube videos. And I can even go look at what YouTubers use and see what I want to steal or copy to improve mine. So that's the point of getting this out of our head. All right, moving on. Add in messaging and transcript. So we're basically filling in our blog template. You'll see a lot of the theme of this content repurposing is just filling in the templates, which is why there are so many templates that feed into this. Add completed upload link. What am I talking about here? The actual video itself gets added into the blog post. And I'm doing great for this. Schedule the actual blog post. I don't know if you can tell by the briskness that some of the stuff was typed, but this was done in about 15 minutes before we jumped on this video. Not because I'm unprepared, but because I wanted to just see how quickly it could be done and just do the remaining pieces with you live here. But it turns out I could finish all of this in about 15 minutes. Might have even been less. So consider that kind of evidence that this doesn't have to be a scary process. So we just followed our WordPress repurposing right here up until the time of scheduling, and then we have that come out and be published. My posts actually end up showing up on this kind of thing that I have added into my WordPress website that makes them show up like this. These additional cards are blog posts that are manually, the images are added, but I think they look kind of fun, and they link out to the actual blog post, which links out to the YouTube videos. So let's pop on back. Where did we leave off here? I think let's go to the next main video workflow. So core areas of the messaging template, we're filling out the rest of that video template. With the remaining areas of that messaging template, we jump up to the social media side. So our social media process, that process driven, is so laughably simple. And this is because I've been of the philosophy for the past, really since 2020, of doing less better. That was our theme for this quarter, as well as kind of my theme for the year in general. And so we've cut back a lot on social media. So this is something that I think will probably expand over time. So what you're going to see is super basic, but that's why it's so simple. All right, so here we are in the social media piece. We use the messaging that is in the actual task for the video, which includes the actual copy for the post, what image goes in the post, and what link goes in the post. All of that's added into that task description. We copy and paste that because it's already approved and collaborated on through ClickUp. We paste that directly into our social media scheduler, which we schedule for the time of publication, the video publication. And then it gets published. That's pretty much it. We have one new post on all of our platforms for every single new video that comes out, which is not a lot, but you'll see in a moment here that we actually add in a few other touch points as well. Speaking of, we're back here on the main video timeline. Eventually, that video is fully uploaded. And what that means is our rough upload, we just put the video up there and we leave it, private or unlisted, and we have it there. Eventually, we have to go back through, and before it goes public, we want to add it to playlists. We want to schedule it properly. We want to add tags, keywords, end screens, info cards. This is YouTube land, so there's a lot of stupid little things you need to add. And that's what this completed upload means. Once the completed upload has occurred, we jump up to this guy, which helps out our social media efforts while keeping things super simple. What this does is as soon as our video is published, it ends up on our YouTube RSS feed. And we have a social media scheduler, like many of you probably do as well, that will actually look at our RSS feed and automatically pull things in when something new shows up on that RSS feed. So we actually have our posts come in to the RSS feed. It's added to our evergreen posting category on our social media scheduler, and then it's published. And that's kind of always on a cycle. Our evergreen categories means that it's on there, and until we turn it off, it'll kind of keep reposting and posting that link to that video for as long as it is relevant, which again would tie in really nicely with the maintenance process, but we haven't fully built ours out yet here. So quick pause. Any questions at this point? Any thoughts or feelings or kind of corrections that you have built out in your own process that you'd like to share? Because we're going to go from here into the email newsletter phase of this process, and then finally into the post-publication phase of this process. So there's a lot of other little pieces, but I want to ask you guys if there's anything that I'm missing or a question that you have or a process that you have for this area built out that I maybe didn't mention or even don't practice because I don't know about it. Give you guys a second to share while I get the next area queued up here. All right, next area. So zooming back out, I'm going to recap this while we wait for some of your pro tips, because I'm sure so many of you are more experts in content than I am. We go from our idea here, and we've recorded our video here. We've edited our video. We've finally completed our upload. It's fully in there. And now our final area, which I wish I had a cute little emoji for, but I guess I ran out of time, is our newsletter, which many of you are also going to be taking your primary content, whether it's blog, whether it's video, whether it's something else, podcast, and you're going to end up on a newsletter. What we do is we have newsletter templates. Now, this has changed recently, so I'll share what it is, what it was previously, and I'll share what it is now. Right now, since process mapping should always be mapping your status quo situation, we have people duplicate the proper newsletter template. Again, add in the messaging, which we've already written in our ClickUp task, which in this case would be actually our newsletter task. They fill in the blank, literally just copy and paste. Send the test email. We have a checklist of what we're testing for, which comes down to links, grammar, weird line breaks, that kind of stuff. Edits if needed, scheduling that newsletter, and then sent. And then it goes to an additional process here. But what I used to do for this process, just to change, to give you kind of how this process mapping in the past has helped, we used to just have one newsletter. It went out every Friday to promote the most recent video. Maybe some of you are on our newsletter list. I hope you are. If you're not, just comment on this video and we will get you on it. But we used to just have one newsletter and the newest video went out and there you go. Problem is we release 2 videos a week. So it's a lot of content, and posting just one video in one newsletter just felt like it wasn't the best use of our emails. So what we've switched to, and you're actually going to start seeing this, it started last week, but you're going to see it moving forward if you're on our newsletter, is now we have 4 different types of emails that go out throughout the month. 2 promote our most recent video, kind of like what many of you are used to now. The other 2 have different objectives. One of them is to explain how the content that we're releasing relates back to ClickUp. So you might consider that a little bit more sales-based, but I've come to realize that many people don't even understand what process-driven does because we do so much free content. No one associates us with paid content. So we've got promote a recent video, explain how our theme of the month relates back to ClickUp, promote our recent video. And then the 4th piece is actually a digest, recapping all of the content that we've created and our biggest takeaways from it. So we've got 4 different templates that we're pulling from, which again goes back to our overall content plan, which I haven't talked about here, but that's our overall structure for the month. Quick question came in before we jump back into the newsletter process. Sorry if I missed it. Do you manage all of this in one ClickUp list? Still not clear on ClickUp nomenclature, or do you create new tasks or move it into other lists? Sorry, Mitch, I just wish we could see your name in here, but how I structure this is, this seems like it would be a good thing to break out in a separate video, but I actually have an overall calendar-based template for the entire month for our content theme. Each month in ClickUp, we have a type of process we're focused on, and that corresponds to the overall content that we're releasing out on all of the other channels. So our template is a list for, think of it as a sprint list where it says content management November, and it's a list. And it includes 2 videos per week, 1 newsletter per week, 2 social, whatever the gaps are that we need to fill. Each of those tasks is already there, and it just needs to be named with the appropriate piece of content that we're going to tie in from our ideas list. So all of this is managed on a list by theme and not a list by content type, because for me, theme is more important than channel. Other question here. I'm new to this. Any suggestions on how to research keywords for topics, blogs, etc.? Wendy. Thank you so much for signing off, Wendy, and for Mitch for starting that trend. As I said at the beginning, I'm not a content expert by any means. I love creating content. I am a total newbie, but I will share my newbie tips in case they help you. If you're on YouTube, the tool I use and recommend is TubeBuddy. It walks you through in their SEO studio step by step how to research tools. And that would be definitely the tool that I recommend, which I can actually write out here so that way you can review it. TubeBuddy would be the one I go with. And for those of you who are on blogging or other resources, please share, because I don't actually know from the general SEO side of things how to go about doing that research. I'm definitely not an expert on that, but I know there are some folks in here who are expert marketers and could probably help answer this question a little bit better than me. So anyone has a good answer to this question, please chime in and add it. But from the YouTube side of things, I would go with TubeBuddy. And I should also say, I use keyword to help me triage, but it is not the way that I decide what content to cover in the first place. I know many people do. They're purely on an SEO game. My primary metric is, do I have people asking me that question? A lot. That is the primary metric, and that's what ends up on the ideas list. And keyword is then the triage. If it's people are asking about it and it has a keyword that people really are looking for, then it's the perfect union. But most important to me is, do people actually need this information? So I hope that helps you, Wendy. I'm sure there's others who can chime in and provide more context on that. I'm going to pop back into this and keep us moving through with the newsletter process. And again, I would love to hear some of you chime in on the comments with your research and your keyword research tips. So we duplicate the correct newsletter template based on what week we are in our calendar content month. We pull in the proper newsletter template from our newsletter tool, which I actually use MailerLite, a super simple email newsletter tool that's like MailChimp if MailChimp wasn't terrible. Next up, we add in the messaging, which we've already drafted and revised together, so that way there's not a lot of revisions after someone has it all in there. We send a test email just to check for stupid things that we might have missed, or stupid mistakes, or things that sound weird. Edits if needed, which are rarely needed. Schedule it, and then it gets sent. Now that is the whole newsletter process. I do have time estimates for a lot of these that I have when they're actually in the task to kind of help us review the success of these, but I don't have them in here. And since this process has changed recently, I don't think my time estimates will be as valuable to you, but we can certainly talk about that if you want to. So zooming out just a bit, we have now created our video here, turned it into a blog, turned it into 2 social media posts, one of which was manual, one of which was automatic. turns it into a newsletter. And then we're at the publishing stage. And this is where things start to feel real because your video is now public, or your core content, right? Whatever you're starting your repurposing with is now published. For us, we have our blog post and our YouTube video come out at more or less the same time. Sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later, but more or less, these are published within moments of each other. And like I talked about with our newsletter, most of the time our newsletter is sent either at the same time the video is published or at the end of the week that video is published. All of these things happen, so around the same time. And then we have it's actually a new task that we just started doing probably a month ago, but it's our post-publish rapid review. Now, I don't know if this is as important for non-YouTubers, but for YouTube, I now know as a noob here in YouTube that the initial hour is incredibly important for your YouTube video. So as soon as the video is published, we are the first ones on the video to watch the video, to thumbs up the video, to heart the video, to add our pinned comment, which we want to add as soon as it's live. We basically have a short checklist of things that we want to immediately check as soon as our piece of content is live. This includes checking the newsletter that just went out to make sure there was no mistakes that we need to apologize for that somehow we missed. And so on, and just supporting the video and responding to those initial comments. So that's all included here in this post-publish rapid review, which happens at the same time as the final publishing, where all of these steps really come back together and we review it all. I'll add that the social media posts obviously get published, but they don't have a rapid review, but that's because we're on social media so often, we actually just check it very regularly. So that, and again, thank you guys for bearing with me with the audio sync issues today. That is the audio, that is the video reproduction process. I'm going to go through back at the beginning here. We talked about take an idea, triage, turning it into something you're producing, promoting what you've already produced, because that's actually more important than the actual production process. So it really should look more like this. Analytics review, which I don't have a really defined process for that, so I didn't cover it as much here, but it's an opportunity for me and for you probably to improve. And then maintenance, which again, I don't have super spelled out here, but typically we're talking about a recurring task or a recurring prompt to make sure we don't have any old or incorrect information that's now outdated, especially if you're covering a topic like ClickUp, which changes far too often. We covered, and just to go through this again, we covered creating our idea, triaging our idea, adding it to our ready to sort status, adding it into our content plan, which I did not talk about in detail, but I did talk about it a little bit in relation to Mitch's questions that came in. We talked about a messaging template. And I even showed you a little bit of what mine looks like. If you are a member of ClickUp, you're going to see this in detail and actually be able to add this full thing and this whole process into your account. We talked about recording, editing, uploading, adding our messaging template and filling it out, and then repurposing that video to be a YouTube upload, a newsletter, a WordPress blog or any kind of blog, a social media post, and a published post on our RSS feed, which happens automatically. Whew. Then we talked about reviewing it all at the end. That is how we map out a process for content. This process, which looks really pretty here, it started on a few sticky notes on my desk about, maybe some of you were here for this conversation about 2 months ago, where I realized not having a content plan and not having a full picture at once was making it really hard to manage content strategically for more than one video at a time. And so that's how this process developed and is continuing to expand over time. When I started, it was just video and blog post. And then it became video, blog post, social, and then video, blog post, social, and newsletter. And now, like I just told you, newsletter has expanded into kind of some variations of newsletter. But it all begins in this, which I then translate into a ClickUp process. We had some good questions about that come up earlier in this live stream. So let me just wrap up and say, if you'd like to see what this turns into, if you want to see the templates that I have going on here, if you want to get in behind the scenes of them, if you want to see what I'm going to build next when it comes to building out this entire process in a public template that you can steal, that is where ClickUp comes in. So ClickUp, which I know I just have to give the public disclosure, ClickUp is my actual paid community. It's the service that we sell at Process Driven, where you join this community. It's a one-time fee. You're in it for the year. And every single Monday, we're doing live Q&As. And every month, we're focusing on a different type of process that you can build out in ClickUp. So we've got some basic ClickUp primer tutorials. It's kind of like a ClickUp course, if you will. I think there's about 26 lessons teaching you how to use ClickUp and define any process and put it into ClickUp. But then every month, we're getting a little bit more specific, focusing on one type of process and talking about how you map it, how you get it into ClickUp, and then giving you our templates for how to map out that process in ClickUp. And that activity of actually creating the template live on camera and then sharing it with you is what's happening next week in ClickUp. So if you're on the fence and you've been considering actually joining ClickUp, this would probably be a good time to do it if you're interested in this topic, because this is all going to be happening next week, where we'll actually be going into this process you just saw and turning it into something really cool. But oh, and I should also say, if you're financially not in a place to do that because of the worldwide pandemic, no worries at all. We're still going to try to give you some of the highlights here, but all of the really intense stuff, because it involves so much labor, we will be having it behind the paywall of ClickUp. And I would love to have you join us so you can have a little bit more involvement, more community, and access to those Q&As that we have every single week just for ClickUp clients. So I'm going to put the link to that in the comments area right after this live stream finishes, where I will be there asking some of you guys some questions. Hopefully some of you on the replay are going to add your tips after this live stream ends. And I will also say that really next week and at the end of the month, you're going to see some more content coming out on the public side of how we manage content in ClickUp. Some of the things that I've changed about my setup, because I've changed it quite a few times, and the reason I ended up on the setup that I did. A lot of those pieces are going to show up publicly on YouTube or in the Facebook group. So even if you're not a member of ClickUp, you will get some of that good stuff. If you are a member of ClickUp, you're going to see all of that in one place inside the templates and processes area, where we add our monthly themes every single month. So I think that is it for this live stream. If you guys have any questions, feel free to add them. I'm going to just do a quick scan of the comments to see how everyone's doing. And before you go, if you enjoyed this video, please do leave an emoji or a GIF. Let me know that you found this valuable if you'd like to see more videos like this. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the comments, see you in the Facebook group. And thanks so much for joining me for another live stream.